Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone. And before we get started with today's episode, I just want to let you know about the Mystical Life Coach certification that we're running the second week in January. Now, if you've been listening to any of the podcasts at MSU, you've been listening to Ellie or myself or any other of our amazing coaches, we are about to run another semester of certifying coaches in this work. It is a 6-month journey of self-transformation, self-discovery, but you'll also learn the skills on how to coach this work. It's led and taught by Rachel Fiori, supported by the entire MSU community. So if you are interested in doing this and becoming a coach and earning the Mystical Life Coach certification, please follow the link below, fill out the application, and jump on a quick consultation with me. I'll see you in another episode. Thanks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Danny Morley.
And, I think that this is such an interesting topic that you and I are going to go into today. And this is something that's been really presenting itself with more clarity these days. And I think it was so funny because I was on TikTok, and TikTok does this thing where they'll show you a year ago today, you made this video. And the other day that thing popped up, and it was me talking about the first time where I realized that I finally understood what was my intuition and what was my mind. And so the story that I told on my TikTok was basically that I was making this decision about something, and I was talking to my friend about it, and intuitively I knew what to do. But then as the intuition came online, I heard my mind saying all of the opposite of what my intuition was saying. And I was speaking this to my friend, and I was like, I don't know what my intuition is. First I thought it was this, and then my mind started telling me all this stuff. And her response to me was, exactly. Your mind started telling you all this stuff, but you first knew the move to make. And that's when I realized, oh my God, a year ago, whenever I made that video, was I couldn't differentiate what was my intuition, what was my mind, because it's all the same thing. And because I've been coming from my mind all of my life, I couldn't trust that it was my intuition and it wasn't my mind. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
it was really fascinating to see that, and then to be where I'm at a year later, to understand fully more with clarity. Of course, there are still times where the mental programs come in and tells me all kinds of stuff and blah, blah, blah. But now I have more clarity of like, oh, this is my intuition and this is my mind, because all we do study is the mental programs that run and identifying them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still there. I'm still working through
Me too.
the mental programs, right? But I feel like I'm at this turning point where I am realizing more. Oh, this is my intuition, and wow, it's been way more online, and I've been following it way more than I've ever realized. And I want to give a shout out to our psychic friend Claire, because she's really been helping both Ellie and I, but especially myself, because I can speak for myself, with seeing that I have been guided by my intuition. I have been following that guidance most of my life. I think it's so second nature to me. I just never realized it. And recently having that kind of like confirmation from her, it's really allowed me to say, oh man, maybe like, that's true. Maybe I have been following my intuition this whole time, and I just haven't realized that I've been doing it. But then my mind comes in with all of the programs, with all of the wounding, with all of the mistrust, and says, no, well, what about this? And then you've got, which I want to get into all of this today, like all of the survival energy, which causes that disturbance between feeling into, okay, this is my intuition. This is communication from my soul. This is what my heart's saying. versus this is what my programs are saying. And obviously our programs, they're coming from a wounded place. They're not coming from divinity. They're coming from lack. They're coming from scarcity. They're coming from powerlessness. They're coming from fear. They're coming from avoidance, whatever it might be. And when we can learn to get into our heart, that's when we can hear more clearly. And that's been a journey, I think, for both of us, right? It's Rachel always says at the beginning of becoming a coach and starting this work that if you want to tap into your intuition, it's not about really understanding what that is. It's about understanding what it isn't. And when we're able to clearly see what it isn't and feel what it isn't, and that's the energies of the programs, right? When we can really decipher that, then when the intuition's there, we can see it and trust it more, because we know, okay, this feels like powerlessness. This feels like shame. This feels like entitlement. And this thing that I heard, I don't know what that, maybe that is my intuition. And the more that I attune my awareness and sharpen my focus into all of these different energies, it allows us to tap into what the intuition is. And that's definitely been my journey over the last couple of years.
Yeah, there's a lot of things twirling in my head right now, but I think too something that I've never had a problem with, and I think you can definitely relate to this, is when there's passion. I know that's my soul, and something that I've always had about me that I'm really grateful for is that I've always known what I wanted to do in terms of my career. So in high school, I knew that I wanted to be on TV. I knew it. I was like, there is no one's going to stop me. No one can get in my way. This is something that I know that I want to do. It was never a doubt. There was never any programs that my mind would say of things like, this is impossible. It can't happen. It was like, no, I'm going to be a host. I'm going to be an on-camera personality. And that's just it, period, end of story. And when I even started my journey and I quit my job and I became a dog walker and I was just chasing the dream, I could just feel this passion. It was just this fire blazing inside of me. And so I know that that's my soul, but I can only feel that when it comes to like huge things. So even with MSU and like moving to San Diego and like being near Rachel and really building this organization, like I knew without a doubt that's what my soul was asking of me. And I follow exactly that because I know what that feels like inside of me. When I went for acting, I knew what that felt like. It was like a hell yeah. And there was no interference with the mind. I have trouble when it comes to the smaller things. I've never had problem with the big things. And so I love that because it's brought me to so many beautiful places in my journey in my life. It's now learning to follow my intuition in the smaller things when my soul isn't blazing on fire, and all of these things is where I'm in training right now.
Yeah, and I know with Rachel, she always talks about how the more and more she elevates, her guidance just becomes softer and softer.
Yeah.
It becomes a whisper, right? And I think from an outside perspective, someone who's like learning this work and learning how to really understand like the difference between the programs and guidance and whatnot, I would think that the guidance is like really loud.
Right.
And I would think that, you know, the more and more you elevate, the clearer and clearer it gets. But it sounds like, you know, that's part of the growth journey, is when something's really screaming at you, it's pretty obvious, okay, this is the right path. But in order to really grow, obviously, if that voice is getting quieter and quieter, your discernment needs to start increasing and increasing, and your awareness needs to match that, right? So I always see it as, oh yeah, that's it. The more that you elevate, it's gonna get more subtle. It's gonna get more challenging to differentiate, and that's part of your journey here, is to grow. And to grow, we do need to be challenged. And if it just got easier and easier, that's not ascension or elevating, right? As you said, like the big things are easy to see,
Yeah.
but it's like it's the smaller things, and that gets more challenging. So I'd love to go into some of this. Like, what are some of the smaller things that you're being challenged with right now?
Yeah. So okay, so let's start from the beginning of time, right? In my life. I grew up extremely religious and very Christian, and so from a very young age I was brainwashed, truly brainwashed. I have to use that word because that's what it is, right? I was programmed, I was conditioned, whatever. to believe that basically anything that has to do with intuition, soul guidance, downloads, if it's not coming from Jesus, if it's not coming from the Bible, it's satanic. Okay. So I've just pushed everything away. I think all of us, right? We're all in tune. We're all connected, but when you don't know how to follow that, when you're not taught that, all you're doing is pushing everything away, and then that's what causes the mistrust, and you can't tell what's your mind and what's your intuition and all these things. And for me, I have a really hard time trusting anything that has to do with my intuition. And so the past few months, I've been noticing that I'll get these little hits, and I will need someone to back it up for me to understand that that's my intuition coming through. So for example, a couple of weeks ago, I just kept feeling like the worlds were splitting. That's what I just kept feeling, right? I didn't watch any kind of videos or anything like on it. I just felt like this intuitive hit that the worlds were splitting. And I remember I was talking to someone, and I was saying like, I just feel this like thing in me that like the worlds are really splitting right now, right? The old world and the new world. And her response to me was like, that's it. I've been getting that too. And it was just this moment of like, oh, okay, Ellie, learn to trust that. And I always constantly think that, just like you said, when soul speaks to you, when intuition flows through, it's loud, like on a megaphone. It's screaming at you. It's boisterous. It's like everybody knows about it. And it wasn't. Every single time I get something that is intuitive, a hit, it's always really quiet. It's always really neutral. And it's always just very like even keel. And so, like you mentioned, our friend Claire, she and I were moving through something, and I was asking her about this program that I run of terror. And I was like, I don't need this to heal myself, but I would love to understand like where this program that I run of like complete terror comes from. And as soon as she and I dropped into our heart space, I started singing this song from this Broadway show. And I was like, while I'm dropping in, I'm like, why am I singing this song? And I realized that the song came from this Broadway show about witches. And as soon as I put those together, I was like, oh my God, I must have died like a really horrific death as a witch. And this is part of like this terror program. And when I said it out loud to Claire, she got this like electricity hit, and she was like, a spirit's confirming, like, yeah, that's definitely true. And it was like one of those moments too, where I was like, here it is. It's always here. It's always coming through. You have a choice on whether or not you're going to listen to it, feel into it, and know that this is a message. And so, that's something that I've learned is like, it's always quiet. It's always neutral. It's never loud. And learning how to trust that more and more, it's really exciting. But then I think this is where it gets murky again, because then the mental programs come in even stronger and they start making you doubt even more. So it's all a learning curve. And I know that we're all in like boot camp right now of learning how to do all of this stuff that is innate to us. We've just been programmed to not listen to it and not trust it. But that's been really monumental to really understand like, okay, this is what it feels like when the intuition speaks. And then this is also what it feels like when it's on blazing on fire and there's passion. Like when the first time I heard Fiori speak on a podcast, I just completely dropped everything. And I was like, whatever she's speaking about, I need to learn. It was never like a should I or should I not? It was like, we're going straight on. And that's when I'm in that energy, I love it, because I know that that's so true. That's truth for me when my soul is ablazing. So yeah, it's just been so interesting to tap into that and start to really follow that and trust it the way of trust.
Yeah, because like it's fine. You get that hit, and then you're like, all of the barrage of the different mental programs come in to try and disconnect you from that intuitive hit, and then you, if you're not aware, like you just brush that off as, oh, it was just another thought. You don't even pay attention to it. It might come into your awareness, but you also have 100 other thoughts that you're kind of thinking within that minute or two. And so it just kind of, falls on by, and gets mixed in with all of the other programs when they're running, when we're not actively becoming aware of, oh, I can hear this thought is this kind of program. This is coming from this energy. So what programs have been coming up as you're starting to like drop in and trust yourself more and trust this intuitive hit? What programs have you healed, and two, what programs are still showing up that you feel and can sense are disconnecting you?
One of the biggest programs that I'm constantly having to go into is I can't trust anything. So I think being in a lot of religious dogma, and also, this is something that I haven't spoke about yet, that I think that the more healing I do, I will speak about it, but I was kind of yeah, in a cult for a while. And so I have a hard time trusting anything that isn't tangible to me, because I've had a lot of trauma around things that I can't see, that I can't touch. So, because I have a lot of trauma from it, and there's a lot of PTSD, and I'm working through a lot of it, it's hard for me to trust anything that is unseen. And
Yeah.
so this program that I have that's big time is, it's not real. It's not real, right? And when that plays, then I get sucked into that, and then I start self-doubting, and yeah, not being able to trust, and um just really, yeah, those are the programs. The self-doubt is huge. A lot of doubt.
So there's a lot of so this big program which came through then, it's not real.
Yeah.
So none of this is real. And when did that start beginning? Have you felt into where this program kind of originated or started kind of being strengthened within you?
Yeah, probably in my early 20s, I went through a really big religious traumatic event. And everything that I thought was true ended up not being true. And when that happened to me, and it had obviously had to do with Jesus and the Bible and God and all these things, and when all of that did not come into fruition, I realized that none of that was real. God doesn't exist. There is no such thing as heaven. There's no such thing as like, everything that I've ever been fed is a lie. So I'm going to disconnect from all of this. I'm going to walk away, and I'm just going to focus on what I can see and what I can touch. And so that's been a really big program for me. And I think it's been so fascinating, because obviously we're all divine beings, and we all come equipped with different gifts into this life. And the interesting part about my particular journey is that I don't feel completely tapped in, let's just say, right? Like, I don't feel like all my gifts are online. I don't feel like, a lot of the coaches that we work with, and a lot of the people that I'm surrounded by are really tapped in, and they can really, enter other dimensions and portals and all of these things. And I'm not that at all. I
And
can't.
and when
Yeah.
you say, I just want to zoom in
Yeah.
to make sure the listeners understand what you mean. Tapped in, right?
Yeah.
Because clearly you're doing this work, right? You're
Mhm.
connected to your heart. But what do you mean by tapped in?
Yeah. So getting downloads, having visions, seeing things, hearing things, having things come to me in all these ways. It's like, a lot of time when I drop in, yes, there have been moments in my journey where, like, I'll get visions and all this stuff, but it's been a lot of quietness. And that's been really challenging for me, because then I'm like, see, nothing's real. And then here comes the programs, and here comes everything that's trying to bring me down and keep me, trapped in this place of disbelief and having no faith and all of these things. So I've had to work through a lot of frustration with that, because it's like, I can feel myself. I need to have visions. I need to be psychically gifted. I need to, because if I can do, it's almost like I'm running a prove it program. So when I drop in, it's like, prove it to me that all of this that I'm actually studying is actually real, and all the work that I'm doing is really real, and prove it to me that I'm a divine being. And when you're running that program, the universe doesn't need to prove anything to you. Divinity doesn't need to prove anything to me, right? That's just a program that I'm running. And so I always have to constantly go in and open and alchemize those programs when they show up, because that's the thing that's blocking me from actually everything flowing. And why do I need to be psychic? Why do I need to have gifts? It's just a lot of wounding there, and a lot of, like, trauma that I still need to work through. And I know that the more work that I do, the more, I heal these blocks and these programs, everything will just flow beautifully. And even now I know it's flowing to me. I just block myself because of these programs that I run.
And why do you need to be psychic?
Because I think I went through so much in my life when it comes to God, that I feel like there's a lot of wounding around. I've been played. I've been lied to. I've been duped about what God is, and who Jesus was, and all of these things. And so, because of years and years and years of that, it's hard for me to trust. I'm learning how to trust the divine again. I'm learning to trust now the universe and things like that with all of this trauma that I've been carrying for so long.
Yeah, so you put all your trust in something outside of you.
Yeah.
Kind of feeling like assume
Yes.
putting all of your trust in something outside of you, and then that not coming to fruition.
Yep.
And falls away.
Yes, and never being taught once in my life to trust myself or tap into myself or connect to myself. Everything's always been outside of you, outside of you, outside of you, outside of you. So that's all I know is that everything is outside of me, right? The divine, everything, it's not in me, it's outside of me. I must ask for it. It must save me. It must protect me. It must rescue me. It must be everything for me instead of me. And so this journey is all about connecting back to self, connecting back to the divine light that lives within you, that is you. And there are a lot of programs with that come up on my journey of like, is this real? Are you making it up? Are you being tricked again? Because I've been tricked before. So why wouldn't I be tricked again? And why wouldn't I be played again? And I think the difference between that time and this time is that for the first time, I'm not being force fed to believe in something that I don't want to believe. The path that I'm on now is I choose it. I'm on this path for a reason because I know in the depths of my soul that this is all real. There's just a lot of programs that tell me otherwise. That's where the work is that I need to really do, that I'm constantly doing all the time.
Beautiful. And I mean, as somebody who came into this life clearly seeking truth, I grew up in a really religious area in the UK. Now, when I say that, I don't mean everyone was as as extreme religious as they are in the United States, because there's a lot of extreme religion kind of going on in the US, from what I've seen on TV at least. But within the UK, everything's a bit watered down. But the area I grew up in was very there was this Bible school there. And I remember when I was in a young teen, I was going to these extra youth clubs because all the youth groups were run by the church. Middle of nowhere in the UK. People come from all around Europe to study the Bible there. Very interesting that I grew up there. But I would go to all of these events and these extra things, extra study sessions with the students that were there, and they were doing this all for free. And they just couldn't answer the questions that I had around consciousness, around God, around suffering, around pain, around love. And it didn't ring like what they were kind of telling me. It just didn't ring as truth. It didn't feel true to me for whatever reason. And I look back now and I see it all now, right? It didn't vibe with me. And then finding this work is all about, well, that truth, it doesn't come from outside of you, it comes from within you. Everything in this work, the foundational course that we do is the power within. It's about you connecting to you connecting to that internal source of wisdom, of truth, of love, of whatever way of oneness you want to speak of. It's you connecting to your heart and you finding that for yourself. And that's a real game changer. It's very different to the religious dogma that we get brought up around about, oh, the savior's coming and all of our power needs to go to this man in the clouds or this person that's coming to save us. And through this work, it's about, no, find that within yourself first. Find that within there first.
Yeah. It's interesting because you and I are very different in the sense that you didn't grow up in the church, you didn't grow up with a religion, you didn't grow up like as a Bible thumper or anything like that. You kind of grew up with that not being a part of your reality, and then all of a sudden, you have this awakening and then you're blasted off into what we like to call mysticism, because spirituality has become something that's like, whoa, it's rough out there. But anyways, I'd love to know what that experience was like for you to like, because it is kind of like it was nothing and then it was everything in terms of you were leading a very human life. It wasn't anything like, oh, the
Very
universe.
third dimensional.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that like?
Yeah, a very, very 3D. But there was also there was always this part of me that knew there was something more. So when I was young, this is what I always used to say when the religious talk came up, when God came up. I used to say, can you touch love? This is literally what I was saying when I was younger. And people would go, no. And then I would go, do you know that it, well, we'll do it with you, Ellie. Can you touch love?
Can I touch love? I mean, I can touch my dog.
Right.
But
But
no, right now.
no.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel it?
Yes.
Do you see it?
Yes.
So just because it doesn't, you can't touch it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Agreed?
Right.
Okay.
Agreed.
Do you fully understand what love is?
Oof. I'm beginning to, but I fully cannot understand what it is yet. No.
Do you need to fully understand what it is?
No.
Do you need to fully understand what it is to believe or know that it's there?
No.
Right. And that's how I feel about higher power and God or whatever you want to call it. It's like, I know that love exists. I felt it. I've seen it. I can't touch it. I can't fully explain what it is yet, but I know it's in there. And therefore, it probably exists. Well, I know love exists because, right, I've experienced some aspects of it. And so that's how I always felt as that about higher power or God. And the current explanation that was given when I was young about a man in the clouds who's telling everyone what to do, that did not resonate anywhere of truth within my internal sense of being. But what I did know to be true was that there is love. And so that kind of like became my belief system. And it was, I'm not an atheist, but I don't like, I didn't believe in what everyone was telling me God or religion was. But I always believed that there was something deeper that is bringing everyone together because I believe in love. So I knew that intuitively within my heart, I knew that something existed that was connecting everyone all together, that was, I was feeling on this really deep level because I felt it as a child. I felt it as a teen, but I didn't know how to articulate it. And then the belief system that I was given by religion, it didn't match up with what I was sensing and feeling within myself. So I kind of put everything on a shelf and was like, I'll come back to it. And then mid-20s, depression hit. And then it has been a journey on, getting back to it, so to speak. So yeah, it was interesting being in a school where there was a lot of influence of religion, but I didn't fully gravitate towards it. And I just grew up a very, I would say, like, normal life, very normal, until like grew up in the UK, lots of drinking, recreational drugs, until that led me into a hole that you start looking for answers.
Yeah. You're making me cry when you're talking about love. I can feel the truth of it. It's making me cry. It's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And um there's such a when you speak about what you just talked about, there's such what's different from me and you is that you're not easily gullible. So I think this is one of the lessons that I have to learn in this life is that I came into this lifetime very naive and very susceptible and very moldable. I feel like my entire life I was like Play-Doh, and however you wanted to mold me, you could, and I would just allow it. I didn't have a backbone. I didn't know how to question things because even when I did question things, I was met with a lot of anger. I was met with a lot of like verbal abuse. And so I learned to just shut up, just shut the fuck up and don't question anything. Whatever you're being given, just take it as true and that's it. So there was even religion, Christianity, there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of guilt and there's a lot of shame. You don't question what you are being taught. You don't question the Bible. You don't question anything because if you question that, you're the bad guy. Something's wrong with you. And so I think that's why I went through so many traumatic things with religion was because I was just a yes woman. I would just be like, yep, okay, yep, 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 yep. And on this journey, when I had my awakening in 2019, I didn't know anything about spirituality. I didn't know this world at all. I didn't even know what a crystal was. Like literally, like we're starting from like ground zero. And before I found Rachel in this work, I was dipping my toes in everything. I was listening to every teacher. I was buying every book. I was following all kinds of spiritual content creators. And now looking back, everything that I dipped my toe in, I could feel if this was right for me or not. And that's where like I could feel like, man, my soul always has been really powerful in guiding me in the ways that are for me. So, for example, I was following a bunch of spiritual content creators for a long time, and I made a bunch of money at this one particular point in my life. And I was like, I'm going to go on a women's retreat. And I saw that a bunch of like my content creators that I loved were putting on this retreat together. So I was like, this is it. I'm going to connect with people. I'm going to find my tribe. I'm going to this is it. And I remember walking into this women's retreat. And as soon as I walked into this retreat of like almost 100 women, I knew from the get go something didn't feel right. I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand. I knew that like, okay, so I'm not dressed like everybody else. I don't seem like everybody else, but that's okay, right? I'm still going to give this a try. And as the days of their retreat went on and I witnessed all the things that were going on, I just felt this friction against everything that was going on. I was like, and everybody was so into it and everybody was doing everything they were telling you, the dancing, the this, the hugging, the holding, all of these things. And every single time I was being asked to do something, it was like, I walked away many times in those retreats of like everybody participating in something. And I would just listen to my soul. I'm like, this isn't for me. And I would go back into my trailer and I would just be with myself. And at the end of that retreat, I saw through a lot of illusions and I saw through a lot of things and I learned so much. And the biggest lesson that I took away from that was my soul was guiding me the whole time. And it wasn't this thing of like, I don't want to be a part of that. And this is sucks. And this is stupid. It wasn't like that. It was so deep of what I'm witnessing and what this is not what I'm meant to be a part of. And this isn't the path that I want to be on. There was a lot of things I was witnessing that didn't sit right with me. And now I can look back and go, man, my soul is so powerful in that way because it was constantly guiding me. Because what my wounding wanted was I wanted to have a tribe. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be a part of these girls. I wanted to be one of them. I wanted to look like them. I wanted to act like them. But my soul was like, this isn't it. And one thing about me is that I've always been powerful enough to follow the guidance of my soul. And I've never been a part of many things in my life because I've listened to my soul. And part of my, mission here on this earth to learn is that I'm not meant to follow the crowd. I've always been someone that goes against the crowd, even though there are times obviously that I followed it, but then I like turn back and I'm like, this isn't it. I'll walk away. That's been my guiding light. And I'm so grateful for that because it helps me discern. It helps me to understand what is true for me and to follow that constantly. And now I'm on this path. And, a lot of people can look at our path and judge us and all this stuff. But when you come down to the nitty gritty of what we are here to do and what this organization is, it's coming back to your innate divine power, connecting to that, trusting in that, and becoming all the ways of oneness. And if that isn't the cherry on top of the cake, if that isn't the bee's knees, if that isn't the Harvard of all colleges, then I don't know what it is. But I know that my soul's guided me here, and this feels so true for me. And this rings all kinds of bells with my divinity. And so I had to learn a lot along the way.
So you began that kind of that beautiful share with saying that about the mistrust that you've experienced and all the wounding, and then throughout that you said, I've always been powerful enough to follow the guidance of my soul. Which I'm going to remember that line to share with you as you move through the challenges of this life. So you are truly connected to that trust. It's in there. And looking back, like, which one is true? Are you guided? Do you trust? Or do the programs, pull you off course?
Yeah. I think for so long, because I was forced, I also grew up really enmeshed, and I didn't move out of my home till I was around 24. it was a lot of force, my rules. You will believe this. You can't believe anything else. So I didn't have room to learn how to trust myself or listen to myself until I actually got out of that matrix and went on my own. Did I start to hear the resonance of my soul? Did I learn to start trusting all that? I didn't know that that's what I was doing this whole time. So even now, I know that, like, I can just feel that I'm exactly where I need to be. And even all the things that I went through in my life, I know I can see all of that now is like, oh, I had to go through that. I had to go through all of that to get to here. And now all I need to do is heal all of that that's happened as a result of that. But it's always been here for my soul's growth. And so even when the programs play, it's so funny because when the programs take over, right, and I'm lost in this whole thing of like, I can't trust anything, nothing's real, this is all fake. There's this resonance that just kind of goes, and I can feel it's my soul going, okay, you do this little show that you're doing and then come back to me when you're ready. And it's those moments where, like, sometimes I'll be venting to you about like, I don't want to do this path anymore. This is for me. Nothing's real. And the whole time I can hear my soul in the background going, okay, sis, like, get over this thing. You're lost right now. And it's always this thing that's holding me up, even when the programs want to take over and fight me. It's like I always come back to that. And that's why I keep getting up and staying on this path and not veering off, because I know that my soul is really the conductor of the show. And for that, I'm grateful. Yeah.
And you're listening. You've been listening
Yeah.
your whole life for that intuitive voice. And you said it, you're powerful enough to trust that guidance, to follow that guidance, to be in that knowing that this isn't right for me. This isn't this isn't what I prefer. This isn't what I want to choose. This isn't how I want to live my life. And you started sharing at one point saying like, oh, you feel like I am like less easily duped. Like that is not the case. That just shows up like in different ways. Like we all get manipulated when we're disconnected from our power and we don't understand programs. We all get manipulated in different ways, and I absolutely know that's happened to me a lot, and I can relate a lot to your story. I'll never forget this one time I was in Pai in Thailand, and there was all these like there's this like big hostel and all these like traveler free spirited people, and everyone's doing their thing and doing the traveler hippie kind of thing, and everyone's spiritual and doing yoga and smoking weed and doing that whole free spirited thing. And I was immersing myself in it, and I was quite enjoying trying to get in there and live life like that for a little bit, for a couple of weeks or however long I was there. And I realized very quickly that there was something there that I didn't quite fit into, and I didn't know what it was. And I could tell the way everyone was like touchy feely with everyone, and it was like super spiritual, and I was really trying, but something in me was like, this isn't you, dude. This isn't you.
Yeah.
And it's difficult because you really want to be, and the wound that was coming up is I just wanted to be accepted. I just wanted to fit in. And that's one of my big wounds is constantly just wanting to fit in with the group. And recently been arriving at this place of, Danny, you didn't ever come to fit in. So stop trying. Just give it up. Become who you're meant to become in this life. Stand in that. Stop needing other people to accept you for who you are, to see you for who you are, and just live your life as you, and just be authentically you. I did a whole master's degree, which is all about authenticity. It was in leadership, but the whole thing was about being authentic. And the more that we can choose to all be authentically us, I think that allows our soul to come here to do what it's supposed to do. And that's what's going to help raise this vibration, is by us stop pretending to try and be other people, stop running all of these programs, wearing all of these masks, and just be what we came here to be. And when we do that, we live a much more joyous, abundant, and happy life, at least from what I've experienced so far.
Yeah. And as you speak about that, there's so much freedom in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much freedom. And, I was like that too. I was just like, I want to be seen. I want to be like everybody else. I want to fit in. I want to be spiritual. I want to do all these things. And then the whole time my soul is screaming, no, no. And I'm just so thankful for that, because now what we are on is a path of true authenticity, a path of true awakening. And I don't have to wear all this stuff or go to all these things or act like a certain thing just to fit in. I can just be so authentically me. And if you like me, great. And if you don't, great. And that's okay. And I think that's just such the beauty as we break the spiritual matrix. I really see through all of it. And if you're a part of it, that's okay. I almost got sucked in and I almost got lost in all of that. And I had to learn a lot throughout the way. And to be in this place now where the path that I'm on is just to be fully and wholly me is just, yeah, this is where I want to be. And this is where I want to stay on for till the end of days, for sure.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to just be themselves and be free?
Yeah.
I remember when I was first starting this work, the thing that I was seeking was inner peace and freedom. I love this idea of just being free. And that's the journey we're all on, is when we go inside and we start addressing these programs and addressing these wounds, and we start meeting them with the love that we are becoming more free, because we're not looking for any of that stuff outside of us. And to bring it back to, everything that you move through in your 20s with the cult of, like, that's where people get trapped, is by giving their power away to something or someone outside of them. And that's why through this journey at Masters of Self University, we're all about empowering you to tap into your own power. Don't listen to anyone or anything outside of yourself, but also don't listen to your programs.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets super tricky, because if you just listen to your emotions, now you're in the unconsciousness. Now you're just playing out programs.
Right.
If I was to spend my whole life just listening to my programs, and note here, your programs are not you. So I just want to make that big differentiation. When we say listen to yourself, listen to your heart, we're not saying listen to everything that you think or feel, because a lot of what you think or feel are just energies that you're either picking up outside of you, or it's an energy that got created. That's not who you are. Learn this work, learn to decipher between the difference between, okay, what are my programs? What is the energy of my heart? What is my divinity? When we start to learn to decipher that, now we're going to come back to the title. We can learn to trust our intuition. We can learn to trust who we are, learn to trust our divine self. And it doesn't come from focusing solely on divinity. It comes from understanding the balance of what we are not and what we are. And that's why through this work, that's where the freedom comes in, is when we develop ourselves to understand, okay, here are the programs, here is the energy, here are the wounds that gives us the freedom to connect back to what we actually are, which is our love, our divine self, our soul. And what a beautiful path it is to walk. Not easy, but a beautiful path. And if anyone's listened to this, like, wow, I want to understand my programs, like, we offer group coaching, we offer one-on-one coaching through the Power Within. Join us, sign up for a free consultation. Just go on the website. I'll throw the link below right now at mastersofselfuniversity.com, and just set up a free consultation, and we'll talk through with you, like, what that looks like, what it'll look like for you in your journey, and find your power within. And if you haven't already, buy a copy of Rachel's book, The Universal Ways of Oneness. These ways help me every day. It's always about becoming a different one of them, normally every day. Which one am I lacking today? And this is really a blueprint to achieve enlightenment that Rachel has so amazingly laid out in this book. So come join us if you're interested, and if you want to receive the coaching, and if you want to go deeper and find that mental, emotional freedom. Ellie?
Share, subscribe, like, comment. It really helps us to keep doing this podcast for free. We love you all so much, and we hope to see you soon in a group class or in one-on-one.
Bye.
Bye.